Well, good morning and welcome to our Friday edition of the Megacast. I'm Dave Scott. Tyler Keefe is here. Erica Jones is here. And we have a exceptionally busy day today here in the Megacast. First of all, I want to thank all of you who are tuning in across Oakland County. Thank you very much for being a part of our broadcast today. You are the most important part of the entire show. Thank you to our great radio and television outlets that make it possible for us to be together today. That's 89.3 Lakes FM in West Bloomfield, Orchard Lake, Keagle Harbor, and Sylvan Lake. 88.1 WBFH The Biff, and Ron Whittable's there doing a great job. In fact, Ron, if you're listening, I'm going to call you today because I need your help. Other than broadcasting the show, WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio, where Logan gets us on the air each and every day. Thank you very much, Logan, and the fine job you're doing at WAHS. Tuned into your radio station this morning on the way in, and we appreciate everything you do every day. So, 89.5 FM, 88.1 FM, 89.3 FM. Then you can watch us on TV, Channel 15 on BAMA, which is known as Birmingham Area Municipal Access in Birmingham. Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and Franklin. And, of course, the mothership, Civic Center TV in West Bloomfield, Keagle Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and Orchard Lake. And that is also on Channel 15 Comcast. If you're an AT&T subscriber on cable, just go to Channel 99 and you can select any of those communities. So go find Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, Franklin, West Bloomfield, Orchard Lake, Sylvan Lake, Keagle Harbor. Click on that community's municipal television and you will find us. Big thank you to Debbie Binder in West Bloomfield, our West Bloomfield Township clerk, as she has shared her Facebook page with us, where we are live on Facebook. So we have a very busy day somewhere around here. Here it is. Our guest today, we're going to talk to Captain Dan Edwards of the Bloomfield Township Police Department in a couple of minutes and find out how things are going across Bloomfield Township, as we're seeing a lot more activity with protests and gatherings across Oakland County. We'll see how it's affecting Dan's job and things in Bloomfield Township. Dr. Jamie Tuweel checks in, internal medicine specialist with Grand River Medical Associates. He keeps us up to date on everything medical on the show. Later on in the program, we're going to check in with Senator Rosemary Bayer, and Kathleen Russ is joining us from the Troy Public Library. Steve Kaplan is the West Bloomfield Township Supervisor. We'll get to him in just about 30 seconds or so. And then we're going to keep an eye on the big news headlines in the coronavirus world today. Of course, that includes the Michigan Supreme Court has said they will not allow legislation to continue forward with the objection to the governor's rulings from the Michigan legislature. Small Business Association of Michigan says 6 out of 7 small businesses do not expect to regain lost sales. Great news from David Coulter in Oakland County yesterday, as they are sharing $10 million of federal grant money with nonprofits all across Oakland County. Good news on the COVID-19 vaccine, as research continues to take big steps forward. We are now in what is called Phase 3 of the vaccine research, and we'll explain what that means a little later on in the program. So those are some of the things that we have going on. Tyler Keefe, good morning to you. Now in the studios. Busy morning. Got us on the air everywhere?
Oh, yeah, very busy morning, but we're on the air, and we're started at least. That's the first step.
All right. This guy starts successfully every morning. It is the West Bloomfield Township Supervisor Steve Kaplan, who we see on our TV screens now. Steve, good morning, and welcome to the Megacast.
Good morning, Dave. Thanks for inviting me to appear.
Well, it's good to have you with us. And, Steve, all those accomplishments that we talked about, the flattening of the curve, benefits moving forward with vaccines, and the other great things happening, certainly mirrored in West Bloomfield, because Monday's going to be a big day, Steve, as we finally have an opportunity for the West Bloomfield Township offices to reopen. Want to talk about that?
Yes, our office is closed to the public around March 20th, and we are available, as we've discussed many times, to provide full services to the public, including businesses, by way of email and U.S. mail, internet, and telephone calls. But Monday, we call it a soft opening, Dave, where we'll have full staff, and we've had full staff here since, I believe, May 4th. We'll have our full staff, but on Monday and Tuesday only of next week, June 8th and 9th, public can visit here only by appointment. But then beginning Wednesday, and one hopes forevermore, will be open to the public without restrictions other than the safety restrictions.
All right, so you put a mask on, come on in, and if you got business to do with your community later in the week, you can walk in the door. Monday and Tuesday, though, we would like to see an appointment if you plan on coming in, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good. Congratulations. So it's been a long path. I think back to the meeting that you were kind enough to invite me to before all this started. We had no idea where we would be going with everything, and we knew there was this coronavirus and COVID-19, and this is early. I mean, this is the snow is still flying. We knew that things were going to be a problem. Did you think in your wildest imagination back then that we would have gone through what we've gone through so far?
David, it seemed to many people that perhaps, and anyone who would think that now would be misguided, but it appeared that it's possible that the virus would not reach Michigan. You'll recall the first case was in Seattle, I think early March, and we were waiting and waiting. Will there be a case in Michigan? And of course, once there was one case, it mushroomed. So there's no, looking back, I think government and the public has handled this as well as they could. Always with hindsight, you have better judgment.
Well, I think it's gone really, really well to the best of our ability. And of course, it's been a tragedy. I don't want to minimize the tragedy, especially with our elder community. And we talked earlier in the week about the challenges that we have had, not knowing the complete impact, especially in nursing homes, of mixing COVID-19 patients and those who did not have COVID-19. And that had a tremendous detrimental impact on lives here, but by and large, things have gone extremely well, and I think of the great job that the West Bloomfield Police Department and the West Bloomfield Fire Department and all the other agencies that we've talked to over the past several months, Steve. Your team has done a really good job, and all the departments in the community have as well.
Dave, thank you for the compliment. Offering an historical analogy, when historians rate presidents, those who are at the top are those that face catastrophic occurrences like President Lincoln, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So had there not been Pearl Harbor bombing, had there not been World War II, had there not been the Civil War, Lincoln and Roosevelt might have been average presidents. The point is that our police department, our fire department, the dispatchers, they are prepared, they are trained, they have the skill, we think, and the wherewithal and knowledge to handle even the worst catastrophe. So you're right, Dave, they have risen to the occasion, to use a cliche, and the township board members are very proud of our first responders for their actions. And not a day goes by where we do not receive a call at town hall or an email thanking the police department, thanking the fire department for all they do for our citizenry, because as we know, many people are homebound. They have no sources of information other than watching television and, of course, Civic Center TV, but they know, they can tell, they learn, they hear how hard our first responders are working.
Steve Kaplan, West Bloomfield Township Supervisor, joining us on the Megacast. Now we're going to get to Captain Dan Edwards, one of the great police officials, not in West Bloomfield, but over in Bloomfield Township, in a couple of minutes. And we'll talk to one of our medical experts, Dr. Jamie Tuweel, in a couple of minutes. Steve, something I know about you, and now that you reflected on presidents, I know you are a great historian. Our audience doesn't know this, but when I think about you, I think about your great passion for presidents, and what people don't know, and I hope I'm not going to embarrass you live on television, but that you can go back and recite the name of virtually every president. I mean, how far back?
No, I can. I can recite the presidents forward and backward and the years they served. But Dave, it's an interest of mine. It's no different than your hobbies or anybody else's hobbies. When you really enjoy a subject or topic, you learn about it and you enjoy talking about it.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's good that you bring up the historical reference of our presidents in the past, because it's good. It's good to look at history, put things in perspective, and someday people will be doing that about this time, looking at this highly complicated time that we've had, and putting it all in historical perspective. Before we get into the history, though, the one challenge that is certainly in front of you and all the other communities that we talk to, and that is just how we're going to manage the finances over the next year or two. State dollars are going to be dwindling, and I know the township is funded by the state and also funded by property tax. We've talked in the past, you said West Bloomfield's in pretty good financial shape to weather this kind of storm, but there definitely is a storm coming, wouldn't you say?
I think for all communities, but it's not all doom and gloom. We're not sure about property values for next year. In fact, there are some indications that property values are rising, which is counterintuitive to me. I would think that people are not interested in moving at this juncture or having concerns about purchasing a home, but the sales prices have increased. So I don't know whether that's temporary. The other concern, of course, is the state shared revenues we receive from Michigan, from the legislature, and that's approximately 5.9 million in the course of a year, and it's all predicated on sales tax. Clearly, sales are down, so we'll have a negative effect regarding the sales tax. But not to boast, but the public should know that we've been very conservative in our spending. We have an ample fund balance or rainy day fund in case we need the money, so there won't be any layoffs. We can continue to provide services.
All right, well, that's good news. And, a reason a lot of people have looked at property values and say they're going to increase, and that's a really good point, and I appreciate you mentioning that, is that more people through this whole thing have learned they can work at home, right? So a lot of people may be reconfiguring their home, looking for a little more space in their home, maybe utilizing a larger home if they have kids that are growing up and going off to school and their lives, because their home may also become their office. And I think that's one of the contributing factors to those that are saying, Steve, that property values may hold real well.
That's well said. And we know that the number one asset anybody holds throughout his lifetime is the residential home.
All right. Steve, thank you very much. We look forward to the opening. Please extend our best wishes to everyone in Town Hall, and we will be over with you on Monday as we begin to open up the doors by appointment only in West Bloomfield. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Take care. Have a great week.
He is Steve Kaplan, the West Bloomfield Township Supervisor, joining us here on the Megacast. We go from West Bloomfield to Bloomfield Township in a minute. We'll talk to Captain Dan Edwards of the Bloomfield Township Police Department when we return. This is the Megacast, and we'll be right back.
Technology like smartphones are wonderful devices to reduce social isolation in older adults. You can call grandchildren, phone friends, participate in fitness classes, and play games. But you need to stay mindful of scams. Scams related to the COVID-19 virus are rising. These include attempts to obtain personal information from seniors, including pitching unreliable products, advice, tests, and cures. You need to stay vigilant and be cautious. If you feel that you have been taken advantage of, it's okay for you to reach out to somebody you know and seek out advice, or even contact your medical provider. Thank you.
Well, good morning and welcome back to the Megacast. Dave Scott, Tyler Keefe here. Erica Jones in the field. In fact, I'm going to be heading out to the field as well today to talk about some of the things that are going on in West Bloomfield and all across Oakland County. So just a little bit of housekeeping here as to what's going on today and a little bit of a look back at yesterday. First of all, the governor was in Detroit, and she was at one of the major protests yesterday in Detroit, and it was really peaceful downtown. Chief Craig doing a really good job in downtown Detroit, Tyler, and the protesters doing a really good job. I've been saying there are good protesters and bad protesters, and yesterday we definitely saw the good protesters out yesterday. There was no looting. There was no violence. They were getting along well with the police. Police were getting along well with them. Governor was there. Speeches were made. Hands were shaken. Knees were taken. It was good day all the way around.
Yeah, I think if you look at the nature of this movement and what the protesters are fighting for and are protesting for, you come to the realization as you do more research and you look into what they're battling for, that the protesters are peaceful, and those that are not being peaceful are not the legitimate protesters that are trying to move this movement forward. They're there to make trouble.
And more activity today, and a lot of activity theoretically in Oakland County. Now, we don't know all the details because a lot of the plans for these activities happen via social media and other networks that I'm not connected to. But we do know, and we talked yesterday to the police department in West Bloomfield and Kurt Lawson, and he confirmed that there is a planned protest today in West Bloomfield. We will be there to cover that around noon. We understand yesterday there were protests out of the Oakland County offices, and we have a report from Oakland County Executive David Coulter that the protests were very peaceful out there. And Oakland County did a really nice job. They had all their billboards up at the county area and facilities said Black Lives Matter yesterday. So better connection from the communities to the enforcement ends of our municipalities, the police, fire, and other departments. Things are going pretty well here at home, and that's really good news. We had a couple of rough days, but for the most part, things are going really well. And I did see a report. I don't know if this is accurate, and we'll bring our next guest in who may have some insight on this. I did see that there was going to be a lot of activity. We've heard there is a major protest planned today at Belle Isle in downtown, and that there could be, 20-some protests around Metro Detroit today, smaller protests in a variety of communities. Joining us now to give us some update from Bloomfield Township is Captain Dan Edwards. Captain Edwards, good morning and welcome back to what is a very busy day here in the Megacast. Good to have you with us.
Good morning, Dave. Good to be here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to our communities.
Well, it's great to talk to you. Just speak up as much as you can because we're having a little difficulty. Maybe get a little closer to your computer. It's greatly appreciated. So the West Bloomfield Police Department has already come out and said that they had conversations yesterday with those folks that are holding a protest beginning today around noon at Maple and Orchard Lake. Have you heard in your department from any other activities that are planned around the county that you're comfortable talking about?
Well, we don't have any protests in our community right now, but we've assisted several neighbors with their protests, and there's a lot of them around the areas. Yes.
Yeah, it seems to be a growing grassroots activity that seems to be happening not only in our major downtowns, but happening everywhere. And a lot of these things have been really beautiful, like the protests that happened yesterday or the day before over in Grosse Pointe, where there are a bunch of 6 to 12-year-old kids, out, and they're seeing all this on TV, and they're the future of our country. They wanted to get out and say their word, too. So there's been that. There's been a lot of peace and a lot of love and a lot of people relieving their anger to some extent and sharing their feelings and thoughts in a very productive way. Any thoughts?
There is a lot of anger about this whole incident, and it's within our police department also. Our officers were anxious and worried about the whole COVID thing for the last couple months. And now when this video came out and they watched this video, I think our officers within our department had the same reaction that everybody did. They were just angered and outraged at what they saw in the video. And we put out a statement earlier this week that spoke to that exact fact, that it's angering and frustrating for us to see the callous disregard for somebody's life. And it's especially because the person who did it was wearing a uniform. And it angers us more so or as much as it does the residents.
Well, it's that one bad apple thing, and we all know that one bad apple can definitely have an impact on an entire industry and clearly an entire country. But I think a lot of people protesting right now would say it's a little bit more than one bad apple, and so the country now is going through something that we have not gone through to this degree, and it's impacting us here in West Bloomfield and Bloomfield Township and Troy and Oakland County yesterday, and all of our communities. And is it difficult for police officers when they're on their daily beat, doing their daily duties to protect the community, to deal with questions and interact with people right now, or do people just want to come up to police officers and talk to them about these matters?
I think there's a lot of anger towards police right now. There's no doubt about it. And the officers have said it, on traffic stops and just being out in the community. They've felt the frustration of people, which is, why we put our statement out that we stand with the protesters. We get it. There's issues that need to be addressed, and like we're hearing what in the International Association of Chiefs of Police also put out a statement that we kind of mirrored with that we recognize that there are issues, and the protesters talk about use of force incidents, bias in policing, and officers' accountability and transparency. Those are the three main things that we keep hearing in the protests. And that's the key to police community relations, is having a trust, especially in those areas. So we recognize that we need to work with the community and come to some realistic solutions that take into account what law enforcement is all about, but also take into account their concerns and come up with some solutions that work towards having us relate with our community better.
Captain Dan Edwards, Bloomfield Township Police Department, is with us. I don't think I would go down this road with you, except that I really appreciate you coming on the show again today, and your comments when you were with us last time. I thought they were so on target. So as I think back here in Metro Detroit, and I think back to, I'm old enough to remember the riots of the 60s and the challenges we had in the 60s with a largely African-American Detroit and a largely white police department at that time in the city of Detroit, and certainly a lot of turmoil, and here we are in 2020 still dealing with the things. But the thing that just came to mind that I want to ask you about, you're operating a police department in suburban Detroit in one of the most affluent communities in the area, with a primarily white community, not exclusively, but a primarily white community here in our urban area of Metro Detroit. Does that add some extra responsibility and extra challenges given what we're going through right now, or is that just, it doesn't really matter?
We absolutely have to be a reflection of our community. Every law enforcement agency has to do that. And we have to be concerned about the concerns of our communities and responsive to that. And I think it's important in law enforcement that whether it's with protests or whether it's with these issues that are being brought up, that we need to work with the community and community leaders. And that's one of the challenges with these protests, that I hope the people that are angry and frustrated and they're willing to spend their personal time to go out and protest and talk about their frustrations, that once these frustrations die down, that they're willing to be part of the solution, and that they're willing to come in and talk to us about the issues and help us come up with solutions that can help us to be more transparent and to help us to be unbiased in our use of force incidents, to be more open and trusting for the community, because we have a job to do to enforce the laws and to keep the community safe, but we have to do that hand in hand with the community. It shouldn't be an us versus them. It has to be, we're in this together, and we have to do what the community wants.
Well, and I think you just said it all. It can't be an us versus them. It's got to be an us, because we are us, really. The police department are also part of the community. So I think that's what we're getting through here now, and that's part of what we have to work through, and clearly we have to work a little bit harder. The last couple of days I've seen a lot of reports in the media with organizations suggesting that we minimize the policing in our country. We defund police departments. We have less policing. I imagine you've got some thought on that issue, Captain Dan Edwards, Bloomfield Township Police Department.
Again, it's like we work for our communities, and it's the community's choice as to what level of police they want. And the community works with elected officials, and they decide what level of policing they want. And through funding, they get to make those choices, and through political pressure on the elected officials to say, we need to put more effort in this area or less effort in this area. And we make some of those decisions, but we have to work with the community and work with our elected officials. And I have a really good example with that, with these riots that are going, or the protests that are going on. The way a protest is supposed to be handled right from the beginning, and 99% of the time, that's how it happens. When we get word through our secret methods of that there's going to be a protest in our community, we reach out to the protesters and have them come in and talk with us. And we try to bring the business owners who the protester, it's going to be in this area, the stakeholders in that community should have some input also, and the elected officials. So the 4 different groups sit down and just have a conversation, and we talk about what the goals of the protesters are and what the needs of the communities is, and get some input from the elected officials. And with these 4 different groups having a conversation, we try to set up some sort of guidelines as to what meets the needs of the protesters and what meets the needs of the community. And then after that meeting, we set up rules that, okay, the protesters shouldn't go in this area because, it's too likely that one person will start damaging property, or people could get injured. So we put a line to try to keep them going in the direction that we've all kind of agreed on from the beginning. And it's not, and the news media likes to focus on that attention, that 3-second clip where the protesters meet the line of police officers, but they miss the big picture part, that the reason that line is there is because that's what the community wants, and that's what the elected officials want, and that's what the protesters agreed was reasonable from the beginning. And so we have to enforce the rules, but it has to be the community and the politicians that help us make those rules and draw that line. And obviously we have to make split-second decisions with things change, and they go different directions, and we have to make on-the-fly decisions, whether to use gas or escalate our force to keep people from damaging property.
Well, from the rule-changing modification department, a little bit of thought coming out of the legislature yesterday. We'll ask you this, and then we'll let you get on with your day, because I know you're busy, Captain Dan Edwards of the Bloomfield Township Police Department. But the Michigan Senate passed a new bill yesterday, not law, just passed by the Senate, that establishes mandatory training for incoming law enforcement officers on implicit bias, de-escalation techniques, and mental health screening. Will that really represent a change, or are a lot of those strategies already included in the training that your officers and others receive?
Implicit bias and those things have been included in our training for years, and use of force in our screenings of our background is included. And we have policies on it, and we train on it, and it's important to have oversight. And like I said, it's important to have community input and elected officials input on it. We can always improve in those areas, but we do have policies and we do train on it, and it is part of our culture. But there are people that break those policies.
I would expect that, and maybe it happens in your department. It doesn't happen in every other little small department across the state of Michigan. So we'll keep an eye on that and let our listeners know. Captain Dan Edwards, not an easy day. One of these days we're going to get together and talk about something a little bit lighter and easier to deal with. But I appreciate you so much taking time to come out during these difficult times and share your thoughts and make sure that people know the Bloomfield Township Police Department is listening, and what we hear from you is the same similar story that we're hearing from our fine law enforcement leaders across our area. So thank you for your time today. Any final comments or anything else you want to share with the community today?
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on here and to help to humanize law enforcement, help to educate the community about what we are about, that we're all in this together, and that we stand with the protesters, and we understand their rage about this incident, and that we want to make sure nothing like this happens again in the future just as much as they do.
I got it. Thank you, Captain Dan Edwards from the Bloomfield Township Police Department, joining us today right here on the Megacast on 88.1 WBFH, whose transmitter, Dan, is less than a block from where you are sitting right now, I am sure. And we want to thank also the folks at Lakes FM 89.3 in West Bloomfield and WAHS 89.5 in the Avondale area as well. Thank you for tuning in on our community television stations. We're going to take a break. We'll be back and check in with our favorite doctor in the area, or one of our favorite doctors. He is Dr. Jamie Two Wheel, internal medicine specialist at the Grand River Medical Associates. We talked to him, and we've got more coming up in a minute right here on the Megacast.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus. Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
All right, thank you very much for being patient. We're just trying to get a couple of things worked out here. Behind the scenes, Dave Scott, Tyler Keefe right here on the Megacast. We thank you for joining us on 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 WBFH, The Biff, WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio. You can tune in on Channel 15 all across much of our service area, and Comcast, and Channel 99 on AT&T, and then always head off to CivicCenterTV.com. When you go there, go to the coronavirus page. You'll find all the top news stories of the day, and then you'll also have an opportunity to go to our live video player, where today you can watch the show online. You can also go to the West Bloomfield Township Clerk's office and check out the show there. So a lot of different ways you can interact with us, and we appreciate the thousands of you that do that each and every day. So, Tyler, I really like when the police officers come on and they do, as Dan Edwards said, give a very humanistic view inside the police departments. You know, I have not met too many cops over the years that I didn't like. You know, like any group of people, you're going to run into somebody that, you know, maybe you wouldn't want to hang out with or have a beer with, or somebody that you might not trust. And I know I'm a white guy, so it's different for me, right?
Yes.
I'm not going to get pulled over a traditional. In fact, I can't think of the last time I got pulled over and pulled out of my car and cuffed. It's never happened, but I get what's going on today. But, you know, for the most part, the law enforcement people that I've interacted with over the years have been great people. And especially now, I think we need to spend time to get to know them better.
I would agree, and I think that I think it's time for the police officers on the front lines that do have the right intentions and do have the right mindset and are willing, and actively working to listen to marginalized communities to try to even the playing field as best as is possible. I think that this is the time for them to step up, and it looks like they're trying to.
Don't you millennials say ready, willing, and able? I thought able was going to be the next word.
Sure. I mean, that you can put that in there, but I'm just saying words.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm just picking on you.
Yeah. Well,
happy Friday. So go to the coronavirus page on Civic Center TV, and you will find, as you can see right now, if you're joining us online, a lot of information from all of our various outlets. The Center for Disease Control, the state of Michigan, Oakland County, our various communities. And then the amazing job that Jeff, the producer of this show, who is going to join you, by the way, you don't know this yet, he's going to join you for at least portions of the show on Monday and pop in, and we'll get a chance to meet Captain Jeff a little bit more. But Jeff puts these stories today together every day for us, including what's here right now. Let's go through them. We have a minute or two, and take a look at the top headlines on the coronavirus front today. Michigan Supreme Court kicks GOP challenge of Whitmer powers to lower court. In a 4-3 ruling on Thursday, Michigan Supreme Court ruled that it won't allow the state legislature to bypass a court of appeals in its lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of Governor Whitmer's emergency powers. Whitmer 1, legislature 0, Tyler. And when they lower it to when they send it to a lower court, that's a dead duck.
Yeah, it looked like it had a little bit of promise when it was initially being tried, but after one of the two emergency powers acts that she had been utilizing was basically thrown out as an argument in the legislature's favor, it wasn't looking good, and now it's about as dead as it can be.
So if people are unhappy with the governor's actions over the past several months, it's going to take as they like to say, it's going to take an act of Congress. It's going to take the Michigan legislature to send a bill to the governor, and then she would have to sign it. So the likelihood of this governor signing a bill that would limit her powers, I don't think you can count on that happening. The other way the people of Michigan can express themselves is through an initiative, a ballot proposal. We'll see if that pops up in the coming days, weeks, months. Not an easy thing to do. You need at least I think about 1 million people. I'm not an expert on initiatives, but you need a lot of petitions to be signed. In a way, you got to get a lot signed to get the initiative in front of the legislature and the governor. I think you need fewer, but you need a lot, so you don't need the governor's signature. And I think I'm pretty close on how all that works, but we'll find out. 6 of 7 Michigan small businesses don't expect to regain lost sales. I mean, that's just downright disappointing.
Oh, yeah. No, that's awful for these businesses. They're going to be coming back from behind, and it's going to be a lot like we've heard from our schools that said they were just at the point where they were recovering now from 2008. How long is it going to take them to recover from those sales losses?
An updated survey by the Small Business Association of Michigan came out yesterday showing that 1 in 7 small business owners still remain concerned they won't survive the pandemic. When the restaurant that serves crack fries goes out of business, it isn't easy for anybody else. 6 out of 7 small businesses, I forgot the name of that. Hopcat, thank you. 6 out of 7 small businesses are saying sales declines of 25% or more in sales is what they've been seeing, and I would expect for some businesses that number to be 100%. I mean, they've been closed. You're a restaurant, you don't have a drop at 25%. You have a drop of 100%. Small Business Association of Michigan, Brian Calley, the president, Brian Calley, says the impact of these losses will be felt across Michigan's economy. It's one thing for businesses to lose this level of sales, but there's also quite a ripple impact that is the whole thing and is impacting the whole ecosystem. So the Small Business Association survey conducted of 658 owners around Michigan. If you're looking at our webpage right now, you can see that you can click here to get all the details, and it's tough. On the other hand, I see a lot of people that have pivoted and are doing well. And Tyler, retail opened up yesterday, and the restaurants are going to open up on Monday. More will be opening up soon. I know at some point we'll get the salons and the gyms open too. And it seems that coronavirus itself, for at least a short term, is fairly under control. So let's be an optimist. But a lot of people are having trouble. And if you don't believe it, go read the survey from SBAM. Oakland County nonprofits to share $10 million in grants. Oakland County officials are announcing the start of a $10 million grant program for nonprofit organizations across the county impacted by COVID-19. County Executive David Coulter, United Way for Southeastern Michigan President Dr. Hudson, and the County Board of Commissioners are joining to discuss how these grant programs are going to work. Updates on the vaccine. We haven't heard anything, Tyler, about the vaccines lately, have we?
Yeah, it's been a while, but it takes time for these tests to go through and through the different phases of the vaccine process to move along.
Phase 3 is where they say we're going now. So what's the story? Sites are being prepared for large Phase 3 studies next month. Declining cases could potentially hamper those effects and efforts. So the success of trails comes down to location. In order to know if a vaccine is actually protecting the people who've been vaccinated, those people need to be exposed to the virus. So I've seen a lot of these stories. I can't believe that they can't find people that have the virus that they can go out and test. And I've seen this story pop up a bunch, and then the docs say, no, well, it may not be easy. We'll find the people we need to find.
Yeah, sometimes I guess you may not be able to find people that are positive with it, that want to engage in the test just because they don't know the safety of it and they don't know how effective it will be, how it will affect their bodies because it's a test.
My guess is if we are doing so well here in the United States that we can't find the people to test, A, is that the best news ever? I mean, is that great? And B, there are places all over the world that are not doing as well as we're doing. Couldn't you do that test in a country that is having a much harder time with the pandemic than we are now?
I'm sure it's possible, but at the same time, that also encompasses other things like diplomatic relations and relations between the medical community in the United States and the medical community of that country, who's in the lead and who's following, and that creates complications. What
do I know compared to Dr. Anthony Fauci? He says, if you go in and you have dribs and drabs of infection, even though you have 30,000 people in combination of placebo and experimental, it could take months to get an answer. You know what? I look at that the other way. If we have dribs and drabs of infection, our national expert on infectious disease says we only have dribs and drabs of infection. I think that's a good news, but I think they'll figure out a way to get the tests. They need to test 30,000 people, and 15,000 placebo, or giving them nothing, and then the other 15,000 with the drug, and see what happens. I'm sure they're going to figure it out because there's no bigger challenge and let's be honest, Tyler, no bigger financial reward at the end of the rainbow for whoever comes up with the right vaccine, right?
I would think so, yeah. I mean, this is the vaccine that everybody on planet Earth right now, because most countries on planet Earth have been affected by COVID-19, are looking for, and people are clamoring for it, and there's going to be very high demand.
In the ultimate case and situation of irony, Tyler, we read our next story. Michigan pet grooming shops reopen after nearly 3 months. After almost 3 months of being shut down from COVID-19, some pet grooming businesses are up and running. Well, the vet's offices are open, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so why wouldn't they be, the pet grooming businesses be open? Michelle Gardner of Clausen Paws Pet Grooming noted in this article that usually she saw clients every 4 to 6 weeks, and some of the pets she's seen are now unrecognizable. Gardner is doing curbside pickup and drop off and not taking any cash. How nice. Many pet grooming shops are booked solid through midsummer, and owners are scrambling to get their beloved animals a haircut. Well, you know what? Lucky dogs. fortunate cats, they can go get a haircut. I still can't get a haircut.
No.
What and what great irony! Your dog, your cat can get a haircut, and we can't.
It's interesting, and I think that's the argument that I'd be making if I were on the salon, if I were a salon or a barber shop in this case. And I heard a lot of them make the argument about dentists' offices, and I think of dentists as being as an essential medical procedure.
Well,
and
and dentists,
as a
Tyler,
haircut.
have been dealing with
Right.
people in close proximity with masks on them, masks on the docs. I mean, they've been doing this for decades.
Right, but yeah, so I don't look at the dentist as the comparison. And be, well, dentists are open, why can't we be? I would look at pet groomers.
Sure.
And be like, well, we've seen that it's possible in some cases for pets to pass that along if they do pick it up. So
Listen, you want to get some publicity for the show.
sure.
You want to get
Yes.
you want to get some publicity for the show. You know what we could do?
Oh boy.
If and I'm not going to do it, but somebody else can. Can we find who on the team have we not picked on lately?
I honestly can't think about it.
I'm thinking of you, actually.
Oh.
Really? No, we'll find somebody. We'll find somebody else. But I think what we need to do is send one of our staff to a pet groomer and get their hair cut.
Interesting idea.
I mean, if they're
Whether or
open, why? I mean, why? Is there any law?
Whether
I
or
mean,
not they would do that, whether or not that's within the regulations they have to be within. in
you think
order
a
to
pet
cut
groomer
hair?
can only groom a pet and can't groom a person?
I would think so. Yes.
All right, because honestly, if they would sanitize all their tools, I wouldn't mind, getting a little trim from someone who normally does Fido.
Sure. Well, then it's settled, I guess. Right?
It's the new normal, ladies and gentlemen. We have to do what we have to do. And finally, getting serious now, Michigan bars, restaurants get the okay on cocktails to go from a House panel. So it's not a law yet, but a bill is in the works to help struggling Michigan restaurants, bars, allow cocktails to go. A package of bills was approved in the State House to be advanced to the floor. Bars and restaurants and city districts where alcohol can be consumed outdoors would potentially be able to sell a cocktail drink to go. So, you can get a growler. Beer people know what the growlers are. They're the big jugs you get from the microbrewery, right?
Yes.
So, listen, the day that I can go out and get Dave Scott and get a Quarantini and take it home. So, do you think we could, get a growler full of Quarantinis? Or, as somebody said on the show, a growler-type container full of margaritas, and that's going to be cool. And would that be that? I mean, that would be a whole new twist on what we've been doing, huh?
I think it's something interesting. You're taking on carry-out liquor in that case, if it's done safely. And we heard some ideas earlier on the week, yesterday actually, from John McNamara and others about how that would be enacted. So if it's enacted safely and within a certain zone, I think that's feasible and okay.
Yeah, I think it's going to go through. John McNamara, of course, the spokesperson
Yes.
from the Michigan Restaurant and Hospitality Association, talking yesterday on behalf of Michigan Restaurants. So I think it's cool what's going on, and we didn't know until earlier in the show this week that our downtowns, Birmingham, Auburn Hills, Ferndale, Royal Oak, Milford, all the Farmington, all the downtowns are beginning to work with their restaurants and will begin opening up more space outside, so more sidewalk space. And then under these new laws, the municipalities can set up an area, maybe a part of a parking lot or maybe part of a park in some area. And I certainly want to preserve our parks, but just some new area where people can get together and enjoy the outdoors, and it certainly will be safer to do that outside than inside, Tyler. So the first community that gets rid of their swing set and opens up a kegger party going on
boy.
there, that's going to be a little bit of a problem.
That'll
But
be an interesting one.
in context, all of this is going to work just fine, right?
I would hope so, yes.
All right, Dr. Two Wheel, I could see him smiling and zoom over that one. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back. Dr. Jamie Two Wheel joins us in just a couple of minutes, and we'll bring you up to date on what's going on in this busy day. We'll be right back. This is the Megacast, so don't go away.
Coronavirus has put us to the test. Now it's time to put it to the test. We've greatly expanded testing in Michigan. So people who think they may have COVID-19 with symptoms like fever, cough, and shortness of breath can get tested. And those without symptoms who work in public can now get tested, as they could carry the virus. Start by calling your healthcare provider or contacting a testing site near you. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonae Khaldun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
Welcome back to the Megacast. Thank you for joining us all across Oakland County on 3 great radio stations. Lakes FM, 88.1 WBFH The Biff, WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio. Thank you for joining us on a variety of local community television outlets. You can watch us on Channel 15 in all these communities if you have Comcast. Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, Franklin, West Bloomfield, Eagle Harbor, Sylvan Lake, Orchard Lake, and literally anywhere. If you're an AT&T subscriber, go to Channel 99 and click on their government channel, and you can go in and watch on any of our municipalities we just listed. Easiest way, if you want to watch and see all the faces and all of the references here that we're doing visually on the show, is to go to civiccentertv.com and watch online. And today you can go to the Facebook Live channel of the West Bloomfield Township Clerk's Office. Thank you very much, Debbie Binder, for making that available. So thank you for tuning in. By the way, just one other thing I want to mention. Every single interview, every single episode in full, everything we do here is archived and on YouTube. And if you just go in and you type Megacast and you type two-wheel, now you'd never know how to spell it because that is the craziest last name I've ever run into, but it's actually, I think, Taweel. And if you go in and you do that, then you're going to be able to see all the interviews that we have done with our next guest. And it is Dr. Jamie Two-Wheel, internal medicine specialist at the Grand Rapids Medical Associates. Doc, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me. How are you guys?
We're doing good. Speak up as much as you can. Our audio, for some reason today, from Zoom seems to be a little bit weak. So my two favorite bearded individuals, I understand, were together recently. You and Captain Jeff of the show. And, you know,
Yes.
it's actually a really interesting case study before we talk about how his ankle is. But, you know, he didn't really want to go see a doctor, you know, and maybe that's just natural for Jeff. I mean, listen, I'm not going to pick on him. I don't love going into doctors' offices either. But it was really hard, you know, for him to get in and finally get a chance to see you. But that has happened. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, I had a chance to see him yesterday in the office.
Excellent. Is his ankle going to be okay?
He's going to make it. I think he's going to do well.
He keeps telling me that it's so bad that he can't come to work when things open up. He's going to have to, like, stay at home with his leg elevated and you've prescribed him 3 months in bed and that he's not really going to be able to do any physical work ever for the rest of his life.
3 months in bed. I gave him a raise and all that.
Yeah, the raise, too. No, I'm glad he's doing okay.
No, he's got a pretty torn up ankle, but I think he's going to make it. The X-rays were negative. He has no evidence of a fracture. He's, you know, I hope he's okay with he's doing well.
All right. Well, that's good news. Glad to hear that. And, you know, it's just a reminder that if you have something going on medically, go. You know, I mean, in the past, all we were doing was doing telemedicine, but you have now shifted from pure telemedicine to some telemedicine and then people coming in the office?
Yeah, I'm doing a bit of a hybrid. So what I'm doing is I have limited patients that I can have in the office, and I'm sure Jeffrey can explain. You know, we've spaced out the amount of time between patients, and we've done that so that patients aren't meeting each other. People are coming in. When you come to my office to see me, the office is dead. I mean, there's no one else in there. And it's like that so that patients can come in, be seen, leave without running into other people, and then also allow for time for the room to get turned completely over, completely sterilized, and go through an entire protocol. when you come in the door, you're going in through one door, you're leaving out another. It's kind of where, we're creating a situation where people aren't going backwards and bumping into each other. And in between those times, I'm doing telemedicine appointments in my office, like I'm doing right now with you, these Zoom type things where I can address patient issues for patients that still don't want to come in, or also patients that still feel, they may have issues that need to be seen by a doctor, but they don't quite know if it's something they want to be seen for. So this is a good way to kind of address that. So I'm doing both, trying to just keep it busy.
Joining us now is Dr. Jamie Tuweel. He is an internal medicine specialist. So that sounds like a good plan. By the way, we have a great video that Jeff did shoot when he was in your office yesterday. I can't show it right now because of some technical issues. Did he tell you? You look like you're surprised. You know about the video?
No, I know he was filming. I was just kind of wondering what would be great.
Well, he told me it was great. I haven't seen it either. The thing might stink as far as I know, but no, he said it was a really
compelling video about an office visit, but
well, listen, it doesn't take much to get us excited about things in this show, but it's an important story, and he shot it on his phone, so we'll see. We'll show it Monday and try and get it up on the web over the weekend, but it's I think people just need to see. We could talk about this all day. It's a very different experience going to your office, Dr. Jamie Tuweel, and I'm sure the same is true for a lot of other medical practitioners as people open up their offices. So we want people to see what's going on now that we can get out and tell the stories, so they can maybe get some comfort, and maybe it'll help somebody who might tune in to say, okay, that's not so bad. I can go see Dr. Tuweel. It'll be fine. I'm not going to get sick.
Well, I'm hoping so. I mean, I do like the fact that patients are a little bit less reluctant to come in to see their doctors. We are getting more patients, getting a lot of calls, and that's good. And it's also probably taking a lot of the load off of the emergency rooms that are getting overwhelmed by people who just don't want to see their doctors. But at the same time, there are people that don't even want to go to the emergency room because they're concerned that that's going to be a place where you would go to get COVID as opposed to get treated for it. They're doing an excellent job of trying to separate anyone that has any type of risks so that you can avoid and mitigate that risk as much as possible.
All right, so that is going on, but we can't say it enough, and that's why I appreciate you taking time today to remind people, look, if you have something going on, go see your doctor. And I assume a lot of, family doctor practices, family practices are getting caught up now. So in the next couple of days or weeks or months, you probably be able to get in even for your routine physical and checkups as well. Is that happening, beginning to happen in most offices? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Dr. Tuweel joining us here, Dr. Jamie Tuweel. Just a couple other things, and we'll let you go. We got a pretty busy day going on here. I'm going to head out in a couple of minutes to cover my first story out in the field, and Tyler's going to take over here, and so there is a scheduled protest going on, and we're going to go. So. I'm just thinking. So, what do I need to do to gear up? Gloves, mask. What do I do? Because I'm watching these protests on TV, and people are just totally blowing off everything we've been talking about for the past couple of months. And not everybody, but enough people that I've been concerned. So I want to make sure that I'm masked up. So what do I need to do today, Doc?
Well, it sounds like you're doing the right thing so far, and here's the thing, it's an emotional scenario, and people, when they get emotional, are going to forget all of the things that are really important. And so you have to just kind of remind yourself that despite the fact that this is a very emotional, high tense situation, that safety is going to be number one. And, but so to answer your question, basically, you're going to want to wear the mask. You're going to want to wear the gloves. You're going to want to avoid, obviously, prolonged exposure to people that are not. If you are wearing a mask, you are protecting yourself, and you're also protecting the people around you from, if you were to, God forbid, have something, you're also helping protect the other people. So you're a one-sided situation where only one person's wearing the mask is still going to be more beneficial than if you weren't wearing one at all for both people, believe it or not. So I think as long as you're able to do that and just limit exposure, people that aren't wearing masks, try to limit exposure. They're starting to show studies where the amount of time spent with exposure is also just as important with regards to how, whether or not you are going to be a person to contract this, as opposed to just a split-second exposure to somebody that's going to be, you know what I mean?
Yep, I get it. Dr. Jamie Tuwheel joining us, internal medicine specialist, Grand River Medical Associates, and our go-to expert on everything in the doctor world over the past couple of months here on the show. I really appreciate you being with us again. So good advice. So I'll mask up. We'll get the gloves. Got to find the gloves. I know they're here. And there'll be no facial covering displacement during our broadcast today, right? Was that your term, or was that his term, or was that another?
No, it was
time?
not mine.
Okay, we had another.
That was Greg Flynn.
Yeah, that was Greg Flynn from the West Bloomfield Fire Department. But you got to keep them. If you're gonna wear the mask, it's got to cover your nose, right? Or it's pointless, right?
Absolutely, got to cover the nose. Got to make sure that it's going to be here, down. And you're going to do the best you can, and just, again, try to do social distancing. I don't know how far your arm reaches with the microphone if you're going to be doing any question and answer, but I think you'll be okay. Again, it's an emotional situation. Try your best to. Might
not be any interviews today, because I've seen a lot of the TV stations have this 6-foot microphone pole. And I don't know that we can get one of those. We do have one, though, back in the shop, Tyler. Maybe we can grab that real quick. The boom mic, yeah, okay. Hang on just one more second, Doc. I got one more question for you, but we need to thank our radio stations, WAHS Auburn Hills, WBFH Bloomfield Hills, and WBLD Orchard Lake. One other quick question for you. So we're seeing now that the vaccine testing is going into phase 3, and that means that we got to get the vaccine out. Dr. Fauci said 30,000 tests they want to do, half placebo, half with the real vaccine, and they need to get those out. But crazy things happen around every corner these days. There may not be enough people to actually conduct the tests now. Have you heard that? Does that make any sense? The COVID virus is so under control that finding the 30,000 people, I know you're looking at me like I'm crazy, but finding the 30,000 people to test might be a problem. Finding 30,000 people that are appropriate for the test may be a problem, unless I'm misunderstanding the story.
My first time hearing that, so I'm not 100% sure about that. The question is whether or not we can't find 30,000 because we aren't able to test enough people to determine whether or not 30,000 people have been infected versus people that had it, that were confirmed, that have unfortunately passed away. It becomes a bit of a discourse to try and figure out exactly how to get the right amount of people to be tested, confirmed, and then plus if you're doing a vaccine, to determine whether or not the vaccine is going to help someone who hasn't been infected versus someone who's already been infected. And
I think if you're going to test a vaccine, don't you want to test the vaccine with people that have not been infected? Isn't that the idea?
Yeah. So
it should be easy to find 30,000 people who haven't been infected, I would think. But I don't know. As usual, I took 10 seconds to read the story. I'm probably confused. Is it a good thing, though, regardless of whether they'll find the people to test, and I'm sure they will? It's got to be a good thing that we're at phase 3 of the testing. Your thoughts?
Yeah, phase 3 is further along, so they're definitely moving at a pretty good clip. The only problem whenever you rush these things through is that you don't have long-term results. So the question remains, will the vaccine work? But not only will it work, but will it work for a long period of time? If it gives someone 6 months of immunity and then all of a sudden they are now at risk of getting it again, this can be problematic. So again, I'm not trying to throw water on any of the excitement that's going on, but there's always needs to be a modicum of cautiousness to try and keep, not just let everybody, immediately go, all right, vaccines, we're back to normal. And then all of a sudden we're in the middle of a second wave of something like that. Yeah. So I do think phase 3 is excellent. These are, more clinical phases. So we're already past a lot of the legislative hurdles essentially and that need to get done. So things will start hopefully moving faster. I fingers crossed, but things do take time. So I do caution patience.
All right. Well, we will all be as patient as we can be, but I know everyone is eager to get a solution and get a vaccine. Dr. Tuwheel, thank you very much. I appreciate all your thoughts today. Good to chat with you again. Thank you very much for taking really good care of Jeff. We appreciate that. And if folks want to come see you, because Jeff told them that you were a great doc, and they've been watching you here on Civic Center TV. How do they get a hold of you?
Just Grand River Medical, all one word.com, grandrivermedical.com, and 248-264-6169. And any questions, please feel free to reach out to me anytime, guys. I really do appreciate you guys having me on the show, and I'm always glad to be here.
Well, and now that things are getting a little bit better, hopefully we'll have a chance to meet in person. Dr. Tuweel, thank you very much for joining us again today. He is Dr. Jamie Tuweel, internal medicine specialist, and our go-to doctor right here in the Megacast. We're going to take a break. I got to head out of here, and Tyler's going to take over here at Master Control in just a couple of minutes. We will be right back. Thank you very much for joining us right here on the Megacast. I'm not Dr. Tuweel, I'm Dave Scott, and we will be right back.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
The Centers for Disease Control and Oakland County Health Division encourages households to prepare for the possibility of a coronavirus outbreak in their community. Keep extra items in your house for an extended stay at home. Remember any special food items for babies, the elderly, and pets. Keep non-prescription drugs and other health supplies on hand, such as personal medications, at least 1 month supply, first aid kits, alcohol-based hand sanitizer, at least 60% alcohol, non-mercury thermometer, and get copies and maintain electronic versions of health records. Talk with family members about how they would be cared for if they got sick and what would be needed to care for them in your home. Learn about the plan at your child's school and your workplace. Discuss sick leave policies and/or telework options for workers who become ill. For more information, go to oakgov.com/health or call our Nurse on Call hotline at 1-800-848-5533.
Coronavirus has put us to the test. Now it's time to put it to the test. We've greatly expanded testing in Michigan. So people who think they may have COVID-19 with symptoms like fever, cough, and shortness of breath can get tested. And those without symptoms who work in public can now get tested, as they could carry the virus. Start by calling your healthcare provider or contacting a testing site near you. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
The Oakland County Megacast returns on 89.3 Lakes FM, on 88.1 WBFH, The Biff out of Bloomfield Hills, on WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio, as well as on Civic Center TV and Birmingham Area Municipal Access, both of those channels on Comcast Channel 15, AT&T Channel 99 as well. You can get that and on AT&T 99 all of our local community television stations throughout the Oakland County area and that are participating in AT&T's community and education and public access television guide. Our family of stations here covering the Megacast every single day during the regular work week, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon. And boy, we have a packed day today. A lot of action going on the coronavirus front as well as on the Black Lives Matter movement front. Protest this afternoon in West Bloomfield, 12 noon to 4:30. Dave Scott and Erica Jones from our team will be out there. I will stay here after the Megacast. We'll have music on the radio and on our TV channels, Civic Center TV and WBTV, the West Bloomfield School District's channel, on Comcast 19 and AT&T 99, and we will have full coverage of that in the field. We'll be Dave and Erica will be marching with the protests. They'll be covering all the events. They may talk to some of the people, but they'll at least give us the story that we need to know from on site all throughout that entire walk being done throughout West Bloomfield. It's going to go down Orchard Lake and then to West Bloomfield Town Hall's Plaza outside the police department, and a dialogue between the police and the protesters has already happened in the pre-planning for this protest, but is also going to be expected to take place during the protest itself. Having that dialogue, opening that dialogue between law enforcement and marginalized people in our community and communities throughout the U.S. and the world, making some positive change through communication, through uncomfortable conversations with one another where we learn. People like me who doesn't have to be scared necessarily when he is pulled over by a police officer, or when he leaves his home, or fear that he's being judged going to a job interview because of the color of his skin, or in going to the bank because of the color of his skin. Having these uncomfortable conversations helps us learn, and hopefully we'll have a lot of productive conversations during that protest today between law enforcement, between members of our community, of all different races, of all different genders, of all different backgrounds, and we can make some progress right here in Oakland County, as we've seen so far in other protests in Oakland County, like we saw earlier on this week in Troy, Michigan. Making headlines today at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, where we have all of the information you need to know from reputable sources throughout the state of Michigan and the U.S. on coronavirus and other big news of the day. The Michigan Supreme Court has kicked the GOP's challenge of Governor Whitmer's emergency powers to a lower court. In a 4-3 ruling on Thursday, the Michigan Supreme Court ruled that it won't allow the state legislature to bypass the Court of Appeals in its lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of the governor's emergency powers. Justice Richard Bernstein wrote in his opinion, "The significance of this case is undeniable. With many of the restrictions on daily life having now been lifted, our eventual consideration of these issues must receive full appellate consideration before our court can most effectively render a decision on the merits of this case." So the case has been seen by the Michigan Court of Appeals. A ruling was made that moved it to another court to continue on. One of the governor's emergency powers under one of the two acts that was being argued by the legislature was said to be used ineffectively and rendered no longer in process, while the other was continued on, and the governor continued to have the powers that she's been able to execute in the process. That was, of course, appealed by the legislature. They wanted it to go to the Michigan State Supreme Court, who has kicked it back down to an appellate court instead, before it has any chance of going back up. Not so great news for local businesses, even with the reopening. 6 of 7 Michigan small businesses don't expect to regain the sales that they lost during the coronavirus pandemic, as it's been reported from a survey by the Small Business Association of Michigan, as you may know it as SBAM. It came out yesterday showing that 1 in 7 small business owners still remain concerned that they won't survive the pandemic. 6 out of 7 are saying that sales declines are their biggest concern at the moment, where 60% expect a drop of at least a quarter or more in their sales as a result of this. SBAM president and former Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley said the impact of this will be felt across Michigan's economy. Small businesses drive a lot of our economy. Definitely in Oakland County, we have a lot of small businesses, but all throughout the state of Michigan, which it helps to have programs throughout our state and throughout many of the counties that are supporting these small businesses and helping them get by, but still definitely struggling to get there. We talked with Dr. Jamie Tawil just a few minutes ago about the continued efforts to make a vaccine for COVID-19. Efforts to find a vaccine are about to take a major step forward. Sites are being prepared for large phase 3 studies next month of a coronavirus COVID-19 strain vaccine. Declining cases could potentially hamper these efforts, so the success of trials comes down to location. In order to know if a vaccine is actually protecting the people who have been vaccinated, those people need to be exposed to the virus, and you cannot deliberately expose patients to COVID-19 in clinical trials. As a result, what they do is they give a certain block of the trial, the COVID-19 and the vaccine. They'll give another block of the trial a placebo and see how the results come out and move on from there. Those and more headlines being made on civiccentertv.com. It's really easy. You go to our homepage and we have all the information you need to know about the latest news by clicking on the coronavirus link. And we're often talking to guests about that news as it comes in, so you can get an expert opinion as well. To get all of that information from reputable guests throughout the state of Michigan, civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you can watch short clips and full interviews right there. Usually by the end of the day of our show, we'll have them up there. Today, a lot of other things going on, so it may be just a little bit later than usual, but we'll do our best to get all that content to you as soon as possible and talk about a lot of things that are going on in our community, things like libraries reopening. And we're talking now with the director of the Troy Public Library. Kathy Russ joins us now on the Megacast. Thank you for joining us, Kathy.
Hi, Tyler. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. How are you? How's your team at the library?
Oh my goodness, we are busy. I just had a meeting this morning with them about getting ready. We're all going to be there on Monday, looking at the building and getting ready to have staff in on Tuesday. So lots to do.
So staff on Tuesday, the operations restart on Monday. What are you and your team doing at this moment in time as you prepare to, so to speak, get your books in a row for Monday?
Well, the first step, most of the libraries in Southeast Michigan, I think it's really important to say this so everybody knows, though the governor said that libraries could reopen on Monday, June 8th, and we are planning on reopening some services, I don't want anybody to think that the doors are going to be flung wide and that people can come in the way that they could pre-pandemic. Our first step at the Troy Library is collecting the returns of materials. We have 40,000 items checked out right now, and we need to get a handle on processing those before we can do anything else, provide any other service, because that's a lot to do. And we need to focus on that, because if we tried to do that and provide other service, I don't think we would do anything well. So our first hurdle is getting everybody back in the building and being used to being there, and understanding what's expected of them, social distancing practices, safety practices, increased sanitation practices, a lot of training. So that's the first step. And then we'll take that step and then we'll be on to the next step.
What are some of those measures, Kathy Russ, director of the Troy Public Library, that are being taken by Troy's Public Library? Maybe some changes to the layout of the library, ways you're enforcing social distancing and encouraging that in the library. What are some new things that are happening that you're training your staff on and will be encouraging the public that they'll be seeing when they arrive at the Troy Library beginning Monday?
Well, the first thing that staff will see when they come to the entrances is there are big posters that say, if you're sick, do not come in, go home. So that's something that we haven't done before. And we are being very vigilant. We are doing a screening of every employee, asking them questions. If anybody appears visibly sick, they have to go home. So once, assuming everybody passes the screening process, they will receive some PPE. So we have masks for everybody. We have face shields for people who will be serving the public. Staff have to disinfect their workstation before their shift, after their shift. They can do it during their shift if they want to. Just in terms of spacing out employees, if you can picture a workspace that has maybe 6 workstations next to each other, we have to change that in order to respect social distancing. So instead of maybe having 6 people in a workspace, maybe now we can only have 3. So that changes how we're going to do the work, because we have to space everybody out. And it might also limit how many people we can have on a shift at a time. And that's definitely going to be a change. If we're limited as to how many people we can bring in, we're limited as to how much work we can get done. So there's that. We have different entrances and exits for staff than we used to. Everybody used to be able to come in whatever door they wanted to, but now it's very specific. This is your entry point. This is your exit point. And limits on number of people in the break room at any time. Things like that are really going to be I don't want to call it a challenge because I have a great staff, but it's an education.
And so you mentioned in terms of staffing, what's going to happen to be checking them, making sure they're healthy and that they're good to come into the building, not putting anybody on your staff or in the public at risk. In terms of people coming in from the public, Kathy Russ, director of the Troy Public Library, with us on the Megacast, what measures are going to be taken for the public as they come in to make sure that John Smith and Jane Doe, who are coming in from inside the community in Troy, are healthy as they come into the library and aren't vice versa infecting people on your staff?
Sure. That's a great question. So when we are able to have the public back in the building, and that's a little ways away for most of us because we're putting in our procedures for the staff and doing some things that we need to do. When we are able to let the public in the building, it's probably going to be on a limited capacity, the way retail is. The governor has provided guidelines in terms of square footage. So there will probably be someone at the door to say, okay, you have to wait, or people might have to queue in a socially distant fashion outside the building. And when one person leaves, another person can go in. So that's the first thing. The second thing, there are signs on the door saying, if you're sick, please don't come in. We hope people will respect that. We are asking everybody to follow the governor's instructions and wear a mask. Some libraries are going to be providing masks to people who come who don't have masks. We will probably be doing something like that. And then at least initially, what we want to do is do more of what I would call a grab and go type of library. So instead of coming in and staying for 4 hours and studying, or being on the public computers for 2 hours, or really, browsing like you would in a bookstore for an hour, you come in, you do what you need to do, and you leave. Because again, with the limited capacity, it allows the traffic to flow, allows everybody to get done what they need to get done at the library.
We're joined by.
And I guess I should say, I'm sorry, hand sanitizer everywhere.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. We just got a whole lot more hand sanitizer here, and we have it all over the building. So I definitely understand that from your angle. Kathy Russ, director of the Troy Public Library, with us on the Megacast. Kathy, you mentioned earlier that a lot of materials are going to be coming back from the public to the library, and you have to restock all that and see what's still overdue, what still needs to be picked up, get in contact with people. In terms of the actual content itself, the materials, those books, those videos, whatever it may be that people have checked out, what are you and your staff doing to screen that in order to make sure that those materials are safe for the next person and those down the line who will be checking it out?
Sure, and that's a great question. There have been all kinds of studies, and we've been active and busy in educating ourselves during this quarantine time about what is the best practice. So what the CDC recommends is that all returned materials are quarantined for 72 hours. So what we at the Troy Library are doing, we've opened the drop boxes. We opened them Wednesday. They are going to be closed tonight at 9 o'clock. Then those materials, everything that was returned, it's in one place. It's in a big room that we've kept the door closed, and so those materials will not be touched for 72 hours. So when the drop box is locked tonight at 9 o'clock, those materials will stay right where they are Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And then I have staff coming in on Tuesday to process, check in, and shelve. This is going to be a week-long process, but so we will actively engage with those materials and deal with those materials on Tuesday after those 72 hours have passed for the quarantine. And all of the libraries in Southeast Michigan have basically agreed that that's what they're going to do. The CDC doesn't recommend that we do any more than that. They say 72 hours should kill any virus that's alive. And you have to be careful with library materials because if you treat them with chemicals, it could ruin them. So we just want to make sure that they're safe, but we don't want to hurt them in any way.
It's going to be a process, and some people are going to just have to be patient with materials that they've seen have been checked out for a while. They've been eagerly waiting to get that book the second the library comes back up and opens again. But it may be a waiting process, but it's definitely for the right reasons and for a good cause. In terms of library programming, as these organizations and municipalities reopen as we come out of this coronavirus pandemic slowly but surely, some programs are going to be back right away, and they're going to have social distancing measures and probably entail less population at these events. In terms of the library events and the library programs that will be back immediately versus waiting a little bit of time, what are some programs that people can expect to be able to re-engage in right away at the Troy Public Library, and those that may be waiting a while?
Well, our summer reading program is going to be online this year. Usually we start in June and we have this big kickoff that we usually get a couple thousand people to attend. That's unfortunately not going to happen. Likewise, at the summer reading program conclusion in August, we have another big event and we usually get a couple thousand people, and it's not safe to do that. We want to follow the governor's rules that, no more than 100 people in an outdoor setting and no more than 10, inside the building. So our summer library program is online this year. And our programming virtual programming through Labor Day, for sure. After Labor Day, it kind of remains to be seen how things look in the world, any changes to any guidelines. But for the moment, because Troy is such a large community, there are 80,000 people who are in Troy. And when we have in-person programs historically, we usually get anywhere between 50 and, we've had one program in the wintertime called Winter Wonderland that attracts 5,000 people. And so we don't want to put something out there that could potentially be unsafe. So we're just going to go with virtual through Labor Day, and then we're going to see where we are.
And have those virtual programs that you have had in place, has this process going through the COVID-19 pandemic and a lot of places having to switch to entirely virtual programming, especially most notably schools, has this process helped the library maybe transition to some more virtual programs that will continue on into the future? What have you learned as a library, as a Troy Public Library, during this process while you haven't had people in the physical brick and mortar library?
Oh, that is a really great question. I'm glad you asked that. Well, I think so much is about promotion. I think especially as the quarantine went on, people were really hungry for something to do. So as much PR and contact and communication that we could have with our residents, we have an e-newsletter, we have our website, we have social media and so forth, and things that spoke to the appetite. So as spring came, we had a program called Bees in the D about urban bee keepers and gardens and that sort of thing. And it got over 50 people, which for a virtual program is really good, because in March when we did our first virtual program, I think we had 15. So I think as time went on, people really were looking for those types of things to do. We've had virtual book groups. We've had a cabin fever reading challenge. We had a virtual cookbook club that was sharing recipes and cooking their way through a cookbook. And as, especially like I said, as time went on, people became a lot more interested in those sorts of things and engaged. So what we've seen is people engaging more with technology, and we've had librarians available to do virtual reference to help people, how do I use Zoom? How do I download books to a Kindle? And so I think that you'll see as time goes on, people will continue to engage digitally. I think everybody will be glad to be back in person, but they're not going to lose that new skill that they found with digital.
You also have a millage coming up in Troy for the library. That was mentioned to me by Captain Jeff, our producer. We're speaking with Kathy Russ, by the way. Kathy Russ from the Troy Public Library. She's the director of the Troy Public Library on the Oakland County Megacast. So, Kathy, that millage is coming up. When is it being voted for? And what are some of the programs that are going to be impacted at the library? Or how will those funds, if it is passed or not passed, be utilized by the Troy Public Library?
Well, the current millage expires on June 30th of 2021. So we're the library's fiscal year starts July 1st. So we're finishing up the 4th year of our millage, and we're going into the 5th and final year of the millage. So we have a meeting with City Council on this coming Monday night to talk about exactly those things. What seems appropriate going forward. The election is in November of this year. So we will establish what the millage rate should be, and I don't think necessarily that will happen on Monday, but we're getting the conversation started, and I expect all summer we'll be working on that.
Well, that's good to hear, and it's good to hear that the Troy Public Library is planning to reopen on this coming Monday. Staff will be back in full on Tuesday this week, so we're looking forward to that. I know that Kathy Russ and her team at the Troy Public Library are looking forward to that. We just got another couple minutes left with you, Kathy. Is there anything else that you'd like to say, or anything else we haven't maybe spoken on that you believe is important before I let you go?
Thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate that. So just to mention what most libraries are doing is next week, the week of June 8th, we'll have staff in the building, and again, getting the staff ready, getting them educated, getting them an understanding of what's expected, and starting to process that volume of return materials. Many of us have in the multiple thousands of items that are checked out. Then, which I think you'll see the week of June 15th, is many of us are planning on a curbside pickup service. So patrons can call in, place items on hold, drive up, we'll run their materials out to them, and off they go. And I think that that will continue for a couple of weeks, just as we all get used to being back and providing service and get the buildings ready to welcome the public back. We will have librarians available to help. Like if you don't know what you want to read and you're used to coming to the library to browse, you're not able to do that, we can help you find some things and get them to you. So the first phase is checking in all those returns. Second phase is curbside pickup. And then I think phase 3, we will be able to let patrons into the building in a limited capacity, again, based on building capacity, what the governor is requiring us to do and how we're supposed to limit. And then eventually, hopefully soon, business as usual. I think that that's, I'd love to see it happen this summer. I think we have to see how things are going. But so what I ask everybody is just understand that we are doing things incrementally to keep you safe, to keep us safe, and to make sure that we do it right. Because I don't think any of my colleagues, library directors, believe in offering half-hearted service or doing many things not well. I think we'd rather do one or two things really, really, really well and get that down and then proceed from there. So please be patient with us. We are delighted to come back and serve you, and looking forward to seeing everybody again.
Yeah, patience is going to be key with a lot of these businesses and community organizations and definitely municipal services that are reopening as we slowly but surely emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic. Kathy Russ, the director of the Troy Public Library, thank you for joining us today on the Megacast.
Thanks, Tyler. Thanks again for the opportunity. Have a good day.
Absolutely. We look forward to talking to you again very soon. Kathy Russ, the director of the Troy Public Library, which reopens like many libraries in the Oakland County area on Monday. You can find more information about that on the Troy Public Library's website, and just by doing a Google search about Troy Public Library, you can find all that information and contact them for updates on services that may or may not be back right away, and when you can expect to get that book you've been waiting to check out from the Troy Public Library all throughout this process. I'm Tyler Kieft in the Lakes FM studios in West Bloomfield at Green Media Center. We're going to take a short break, and we will return right after that with Senator Rosemary Bayer. We spoke to her recently on the Megacast from the Michigan's 12th Senatorial District, and we will talk to her again in just a few minutes after this quick break.
Hello, I'm Dr. Betty Chu, Chief Quality Officer at Henry Ford Health System, and I'm with Wright Lassiter, Henry Ford Health System's CEO, to talk about coronavirus.
In uncertain times, it's natural to have questions, so I'm going to ask Dr. Chu to answer some of the common ones. First, why can't I visit my grandma to see if she's okay?
Because the elderly are at a higher risk for complications with this disease, and you could inadvertently infect her.
If I'm healthy, why can't I go out with my friends?
The larger the crowd you're exposed to, the higher the chance you could get infected and infect others.
If I have symptoms, why do I have to seek care?
While the disease isn't dangerous for most people, for others it can be. We need to understand how serious your case is, because the right choices save lives. For more information, visit henryford.com or call 313-874-1055.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
You know, we're learning a lot as we come out of this process, just like we did as we entered the process of dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, and as was urged to us in that public service announcement, continue to stay vigilant, stay smart, do your part, and wear that mask, maintain your social distance, be careful, and think about other people. You could have the virus yourself. It could be asymptomatic still. We're still not quite, as the governor loves to say, and I say this because I listen to every single one of her press conferences, not including the one that's currently ongoing because got to do the show. I love that line. We're not out of the woods yet. We're not. So stay vigilant with it and keep working at it, and we'll eventually be out of the woods soon down the line as the vaccine continues to be worked on. And we slowly but surely continue to emerge from the stay-at-home order and the other restrictions that were in place. Of course, the stay-at-home order is no longer in effect. Gatherings of 100 people or fewer are now permitted in the state of Michigan, with social distancing measures being in place, as well as other new permissions that have been granted this week by the governor, as the state's been making great progress, but still a long way to go. As, of course, there is no solution to this just yet. There isn't a vaccine. There isn't a cure for COVID-19. So, of course, stay vigilant. I'm Tyler Kieft here in the Lakes FM studios. We're on our family of stations on TV on Birmingham Area Municipal Access and Civic Center TV, both Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99, and on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 WBFH, The Biff, under the leadership of station manager Ron Whittables, and WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio. Logan Pizzurro hitting the buttons over there, keeping us on the air. A junior, just finishing up his junior year at Avondale High School. So many people go into making this show work and getting all this information out there to the public. That includes all the people that work behind the scenes, like I just mentioned, from our family of stations, all the people that work behind the scenes for our team, and that also includes our very important guests who come on the show and give us more information on the details we need to know that they have from their inside expertise. And those people include State Senator Rosemary Bayer from the 12th District. Joining us now on the Megacast. District 12 includes many communities such as Addison Township, Auburn Hills, Beverly Hills, Keego Harbor, Oakland Township, the village of Lake Orion, Pontiac, as well as Southfield, and so on. There's many different communities in Rosemary Bayer's district, and she joins us now on the Megacast. Senator Bayer, thank you for being with us again.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, appreciate having you on. How have you been? How's your team?
There's a long list of communities in the district. And,
there is. I got at least a paragraph of them right here in front of me on
the whole
page.
Paragraph for it. They're all important, but I actually had the opportunity to live up in the very northern part, right on the border of the county. And now I live down in the very southern part in Beverly Hills.
So you got to see. You got to see your coverage area from both sides. That's fantastic. So last time we featured you on, the state was going through a lot of changes. Still was in the process of discussing, particularly the education funding that may be severely cut. It was a lot worse of a projection at that time than what we saw from the Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference. But still, as of now, $600 to $650 cut per pupil is still potentially in play for these schools. How have things progressed on the legislative level, at the government level in the state of Michigan, to help these schools continue to work to possibly shoulder the blow, if they can, from these cuts?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different things that are going on. One, the biggest one, I would say, from my time perspective, is trying to find more money, right? So the one thing that is across the board, all different parts of this process that we go through, everybody wants to protect the school funding as much as, get as much of it back as possible before the school year starts. And there's a frustration because we haven't been able to actually issue numbers in a real way yet, because we're trying to fill the gap. We're trying to find ways to get through this. That includes advocating with our congressional representatives, our senators, our congresspeople. My big, huge, long district includes 4 congresspeople. So all of them are working on this to try to find ways to get more money into the system so that we can put more money into the schools and not have a deficit for this year. And it's a challenge because some of the first deficit is the current school year, which is nearly done, of course, and pretty hard to cut out of your budget money that's already been spent. So that's a specific challenge, and that's $1 billion, and it's a lot of money to ask to find when you've already spent your budget or most of your budget. So we're working on that pretty frantically from a financial perspective as well, with our treasury, trying to find ways to make this up without having to then going forward, of course, we're still looking at next year, another $1 billion, and the year for that less than. It does go down as we go forward, but we're really trying to maneuver, right? So using funds from other things to hold the budget as full as we can from a Michigan perspective. And I don't know if you were going to ask if you're interested in the federal CARES money that we have been allocated. It's over $3 billion. We can't really use that to pay our school bills. We can only use that for COVID expenses. So one of the things as I've been working with our school districts is talking to them about identifying the specifics of what they need because of COVID, right? So there are a lot of things that have to get added this year. Whatever the model is going to look like in each of our school districts. If they need to have screeners at the door, if they need extra transportation, if they need extra teachers because kids are working at home and at school, right? A blended kind of in-home, at-home, or in-school, at-home model. All of those things require extra resources that are specific to this virus. And so those are things that we can pull that CARES money for as we identify the models and understand what they need. We can use that money. The standard budget that we were expecting to have this year, that we can't use the CARES money for. So we're advocating with our federal government to let us use some of that to pay those bills, because the only reason we can't pay them is because of COVID-19. We were in a perfectly fine shape before that. It was all directly related to the virus. So all those pieces are being worked right now, which is kind of slowing down the budgeting process. We should have by now had a better feel for everybody what their money was going to look like. But it's because we don't want to give up the fight here. We want to find more money and do the best we can for the schools. We're getting the health thing managed. We're starting to get pretty good at that. Getting through this, that's why we're loosening, why the governors are loosening some of the restrictions. So now our next top priority is the schools.
Yeah, schools have to be a priority. They're planning now to take a potentially large hit, and they don't know what that's going to be. There's going to be another estimating conference coming up very soon that will also help to determine that, and the state's working very hard, it seems, especially the governor's mentioned it's been a priority of hers to do whatever she can to move money around and to help, and hopefully get some federal aid from your conversation with our people in Congress in Washington. Is that looking positive? Do you believe that we may have a chance of getting some federal aid in for Michigan schools, or are other states potentially working on that?
It sort of kind of goes in and out. Some days it feels like, yes, we're going to get there. And then other days it takes 2 steps back and, kind of revamp. I heard again today that it was looking more positive. But, we're just going to keep pushing in every direction because we can't count on anything there until we have it, basically. So anything we can do locally, anything we can do with our treasury, any other mechanism that we have to keep the schools whole, that's what we're trying to do. All of them together. It's just, doing our job, doing everything we can to take care of the schools and the kids.
Yeah, still definitely a lot of question marks in regards to school funding.
Unfortunately, yeah, we just don't have the answers yet. I wish we did. We don't want to say $650, right? We don't want that. So that's why we're fighting. That's why we're working.
Yeah, I mean, if you can reduce the amount of the size of the hit per pupil that's going to go to these school districts from these budget cuts that frankly are going to need to happen across the board, not just in education, but in other services as well. But making that as minimal as possible is going to be the best benefit for the student, and that's the purpose of our education system in the state of Michigan.
So the one thing I will mention, most of the school funding in Michigan comes from sales taxes. And so as our businesses come back, as our restaurants are open, and I know we encourage people to get takeouts, and you feel more comfortable with your personal household revenue stream, right? Your income, share that, start going out and getting, even if you're not comfortable sitting in a restaurant, buy some more takeout food, and the things that we can do to prop up our own Michigan businesses, that's going to be better for our budgets, for the school budgets, and that's where that money goes. Just to remind folks, when we look at the projections for income levels for individuals and families in Michigan, it's actually not that bad. It's pretty consistent. It doesn't take the big dive that businesses have. So We have to build our confidence, and we have to feel safe and all of those things. We don't want to rush anything. We're being very careful about how we come back.
Absolutely.
But as we do that, think local business, think Michigan business.
Yeah, and these businesses are coming back. Restaurants are reopening, and we're seeing other businesses that have had their restrictions under the COVID-19 safety measures being taken by the governor and by the state government as well be lifted gradually over time. Is that giving some sense of hope to this budget issue that sales tax could come back in some sort of a boom? Maybe it's not much, but it's something that at least gives a positive outlook. Is that giving any sort of positive forward movement to solving some of these budget issues?
Well, the projections do assume that people start going out more. I mean, there is an assumption there, but it's an assumption. And given that we've never had this happen before, right? This is completely new, unprecedented. So the assumptions that the financial analysts make are based on, informed decisions. These are experts in the field, but they don't really know how people are going to behave. So when we look at income levels that really aren't going down that much when you factor in everything, once you then look at the consumer confidence index, which is just 10, right? So those two things together are a challenge for people going out and spending money. You have to feel confident that your income stream is back, your job is back, or whatever it is that you're dependent on is okay, and then you can start spending again. And that's the piece that we're still sort of tiptoeing and trying to find our way. But now that we're opening, pretty quickly here, we'll start to get a feel for how do people feel about this? How are we doing? To me, I see more people out and about. I see more cars on the road. It seems like everybody's excited about that.
Yeah, it definitely seems like people are really eager to get back out, and hopefully that does provide some sort of economic boom that can help with these budget issues. So Senator Rosemary Bayer with us on the Megacast from Michigan's 12th District. We just have a few more minutes with you, Senator, so I'd like to move on, if possible, to talk about what's also going on beyond the coronavirus in our communities throughout the state and throughout the country as we start to see our communities speak out against injustices, including police brutality, particularly through the Black Lives Matter protests that have popped up throughout the country, including right here in Michigan. Governor Whitmer marched with faith leaders and protesters down Woodward Avenue yesterday. We have our team out in West Bloomfield where they're going to have where there's going to be a protest and a march today. And on that note, on the issue at hand that sparked all this, which was police brutality and the issues that surround that, the Michigan Senate recently passed a bill that requires implicit bias and de-escalation police training and protests. Could you go into a little bit about what's in that bill and what changes are being made to regulations on our law enforcement?
Yeah, so, it's interesting. We're one of the few states that doesn't really have continuing education requirements for police forces. And so that's a big part of what came out yesterday in that bill. And specifically, as you said, implicit bias, cultural awareness training, de-escalation is a critical piece of that, using alternate methods before force. I mean, all of the things that are more modern policing that you wouldn't necessarily, it's not that they don't talk about it, and some police forces are more informed than others or younger, or, it just depends on your population. This is a way to make sure that all across the state, all of our police forces will have that same level of current training, modern ways of dealing with these kind of situations, so we can move away from some of the violence that happens and go toward peaceful protesting, which is what people want. I mean, these are people who are saying the truth, right? They're telling their story, they're making sure their voices are heard, and trying to do that in a peaceful way. And so we must deal with that correctly. We must allow that to happen. That's a big part of how our government works, how a democracy works, and how healthy we are. We make that happen, and we allow that to be safe, and people to feel safe when they go out to speak their minds. And it's such a hugely important issue to be able to see how we're moving forward just in a short period of time, in awareness, and helping people understand, what does this really mean to have skin of a darker color? How does that really feel when you get pulled over by the police? When I get pulled over by the police, I'm not actually fearful for myself at all, right?
Yeah, neither.
But I have many friends who have dark skin who, when they get pulled over, it is terrifying. Their heart races. They want to make sure they never do the wrong thing, because anything
Absolutely.
hundreds of thousands of people.
Absolutely. It's time for us to face the uncomfortable issue and have those uncomfortable conversations. And I think that's what's happening with the Michigan Senate passing this bill really quickly as these protests have gone on and the issue's been raised and brought to the forefront. And on top of that, we've had a lot of police officers on this week from the West Bloomfield Police Department, from Bloomfield Hills, from Rochester, all throughout our local area. And they've all really been in agreement with the movement that this is not what policing is about. It's not about enforcing the law with the emphasis on enforcement being on force. It's about keeping order in a way that organizes communities and keeps communities vigilant and keeps communities safe. So they're having this conversation and saying, that's not us. We want to be engaging in the correct training amongst our ranks and make it clear what our purpose really is. And it's good that we're having that conversation. Are you seeing that happen more across the board with the law enforcement?
Yeah. So when I went to the rally in Pontiac, and when I came in, I saw the community police folks, their sheriff's department actually there that serve Pontiac, and everybody knows them. And I walked over and it's Gil, hey Gil, how you doing? And he comes big virtual hugging going on there. And so I asked him what was happening and how they were reacting to everything. And he said, they called and asked us, they're the community members there, right, doing the policing in Pontiac. What do we want? What do we think they need to do? And he said, we just want to go out and be there. We're going to be part of the community like we always are. And there they were. They're part of the gang, and everybody knows them, and everything's good. They know they're there for the right reasons, and they're bringing that calmness and that peace to the gathering, which was marvelous, actually. So it's decidedly what they want to do. This is about knowing how to do the right thing and getting them there. I think it's more than possible, right? You can definitely get there.
I agree as well. Rosemary Bayer, the state senator from Michigan's 12th district, with us on the Megacast. Just a couple more minutes we have left with you. So before I let you go, anything else that you'd like to say before I let you go that we haven't maybe touched on already?
No, the only thing I would mention is in support again of our businesses, because they are supposed to have people wear masks, right? And they have to do a lot of things to keep their business safe. So true, no shoes, no shirt, no mask, no service. And this should not be a big deal for people. Get over your whatever stubbornness you feel about this. The same reason you have to wear shoes in that store is the same reason you have to wear masks in that store. Just put the thing on, get over it. It's not a big deal. We all are doing it. Japan's been doing it for years, right? This is just normal. And make it easier on the restaurant people who don't want to turn away business because they desperately need you to come. So just follow the rules. Don't make them have to decide what to do with you. Go along. I've seen people on Facebook saying, thanks for telling me they're not wearing masks there. I'm not going there. So I think this is the right, we all know from a medical perspective, it's the right thing to do, but it's also the right thing to do to support our local businesses. Wear your mask.
Yeah, it's a great way to support local businesses and a great way to support the people in your community and all throughout our state as we continue on through this. Senator Rosemary Bayer from Michigan's 12th District, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Rosemary Bayer from Michigan's 12th District, our state senator, with us on the Oakland County Megacast on 89.3 Lakes FM, on Civic Center TV, on Birmingham Area Municipal Access, and our partnering radio stations 88.1 WBFH, The Biff, and WAHS 89.5 Avondale Community Radio. We just have a couple more minutes remaining in today's show. We're going to continue our coverage after the show as there is a protest going on in West Bloomfield Township today, 12 noon to 4 o'clock to about 4 o'clock, 4:30. It'll begin on Orchard Lake Road. It will conclude at the West Bloomfield Police Department. The police department's been involved in the planning for it. The protesting group has been involved in the planning of it, as have local businesses. It's a partnership as our community takes a stand for what's right and has a peaceful protest being planned. There are plans in place, of course. As always, our local police department is keeping vigilant to make sure that if things do go awry, they are ready to take care of that. We have now Dave Scott in the field. He's up on Orchard Lake Road near the boulevard where this will begin. Dave, how are things coming together right now as we're preparing for this to begin?
Very good, Tyler. Thank you very much for checking in. We're here in West Bloomfield on Orchard Lake Road, and as you said, the boulevard, which is just south of 15 Mile Road, and people are gathering. We didn't see anybody, and then all of a sudden, a lot of people started showing up, and you could see if Erica can turn the camera back toward the crowd over there. Eric, if you can shoot the folks over there, you might be able to see in the distance. Channel 4 television truck is here. Number of people beginning to gather. We would say that maybe there are about 25 to 50 people here, but people are showing up from all different parking lots in the area. It's a beautiful hot day here in West Bloomfield. And Tyler, we're going to be here with continuing reports. We understand this group is going to start here at 15 Mile and Orchard Lake Road and make its way up, eventually ending up by the West Bloomfield Police Department. And we'll have complete reports for our Lakes FM listeners. We are going to continue our coverage after the Megacast today. And we'll have live coverage for you throughout the afternoon on Lakes FM. Tyler, any questions? If not, back to you.
No, it looks good. Looks like it's forming. Everything's forming out there and coming together. We'll see how it goes if more people join in, or if it's just going to be that small little group you said of about 25 people. But it's looking good out there so far, Dave. And how are people feeling? Have you had a chance to talk to anybody from the group as we begin this protest?
No, people are just arriving, Tyler. You could see right now that we're beginning to see a lot of cars, a lot of people honking their horns, people that are just driving through the area, recognizing that a protest is here, seeing the Black Lives Matter signs, seeing the television crews. It's beginning to look more like your typical protest scene. And it's amazing. 5 minutes ago, there was nobody. And now it looks like there may be 50, nearly 100 people. And keeping a very safe distance out of the view, essentially, of most of the protesters that are here are members of law enforcement. So all in all, very beautiful, very peaceful. And that's what we are crossing our fingers for and hoping for this afternoon.
Absolutely. We'll be back with Dave and Erica in the field throughout that. Dave, thank you for that initial report. Dave Scott in the field for us with Erica Jones at the Black Lives Matter protest that will be happening in West Bloomfield. It is underway. Scheduled 12 noon to about 4 o'clock. It'll be a march down Orchard Lake Road toward Walnut Lake Road, I would presume, as they head toward to West Bloomfield Town Hall's Plaza and the West Bloomfield Police Department, where a dialogue is expected to be had on site between the police and members of the protesting group, as has already happened in the planning of this protest. This was very much a community partnership in the planning, as far as we know from our communications with Chief Michael Patton and Deputy Police Chief Kurt Lawson from the West Bloomfield Township Police Department. Planning how this is going to go. What are the goals of this protest? How is it going to work? And what is the dialogue that they're hoping to begin and open and have today with the West Bloomfield Police Department about police brutality, about the treatment of black people by the police throughout our country, and what needs to change to make things more equal and more just, because that's from what our conversations have been with the West Bloomfield Police Department, with the Rochester Police Department this week. That is their goal, and communication is key. Communication is key in solving any problem. And I think that the police department, at least in West Bloomfield, from our conversations with Kurt Lawson and definitely from our other local municipal police forces, such as Bloomfield Township and with Dan Edwards and company and Stephen Schettenhelm and company over in Rochester, have made it clear they want to have these uncomfortable conversations and talk about what they may be doing wrong, what they may be doing right, and can be doing better, and open that dialogue and take those necessary steps to make our society a lot more equal, particularly in the way that we are policed and beyond. That will do it for this week's edition of the Oakland County Megacast today on a Friday. I'm Tyler Kieft in the Green Media Center studios. Dave Scott and Erica Jones out in the field, a key part of our show each and every day here on the Oakland County Megacast and our family of stations. They'll be out in the field continuing our coverage of the protests in West Bloomfield Township. That will begin in 30 seconds. We'll have music. We'll cut back in. We'll talk to people to Dave and Erica in the field. Maybe they'll talk to a few people along the way, but they'll give us the entire story. So for all of our partnering TV and radio stations throughout Oakland County joining us on the Megacast this week, for all of our crew, for Dave and Erica out in the field, Jake Kustash back in the studio, Ryan Younglove, who's been with us all week, and more. I'm Tyler Kieft, thanking you for listening to us. This has been the Megacast on Lakes FM. keeping West Bloomfield connected during the coronavirus outbreak.